Imagine surviving brutal torture as a POW, only to discover, decades later, that your tormentor is alive and well. What would you do? This is the unbelievable true story of Eric Lomax, a man forced to choose between soul-crushing revenge and life-altering forgiveness. Stick around, because the ending of The Railway Man will fundamentally change how you view pain, trauma, and the pursuit of justice. The narrative begins in Singapore in 1942, during the fierce Battle of Singapore between British and Japanese forces. Major York of the British Army suddenly informs his radio division subordinates that an armistice has been declared. He instructs them to immediately destroy all sensitive evidence, and they hurriedly dismantle their equipment. Following Japan's victory and the fall of Singapore, the defeated British soldiers were taken captive. The film centers on Eric Lomax, a British Army engineer. Eric and his comrades were crammed into a freight train, enduring a grueling, multi-day journey without adequate food or water, traveling from Singapore towards Kanchanaburi, Thailand, approximately 130 kilometers from Bangkok. Upon arrival, Eric and the others were confronted with a horrific sight. Local laborers and fellow British prisoners were engaged in forced labor, ramusha, building the infamous Thailand-Myanmar Railway, grimly nicknamed the Death Railway. The next morning, the new prisoners were sorted. Non-engineers were sent to work on the tracks, while engineers, including Eric, were tasked with repairing machinery. That night, the engineers debated their situation. Torby proposed an uprising, citing their numerical advantage. However, Eric Lomax, the most analytical of the group, presented his hand-drawn map. He explained that a westward escape was almost impossible due to the incomplete rail lines to Bangkok. They risked encountering Japanese patrols in the dense jungle without sufficient provisions. Eric emphasized the sheer brutality inherent in building the railway. Finley, their unofficial leader, declared, "We are soldiers, not slaves." He then asked Eric and Widdens what was needed to construct a radio. Thus began their clandestine mission: to build a radio to receive external news, learn the war's status, and find hope for salvation. They painstakingly gathered stolen and salvaged components from scraps within the camp. Their major obstacle was finding a capacitor. Finley remembered that a fellow soldier, Jackson, had one. Eric and Finley went to the field where Jackson was working. There, they unexpectedly encountered Major York, trembling as he worked. During a brief distraction caused by a successfully repaired machine, Eric managed to retrieve the capacitor from Jackson. That night, Eric updated his map and concealed it within a makeshift bamboo latrine. With all parts secured, they assembled the radio inside a truck, secretly drawing power from the battery of a vehicle undergoing repairs. Eric's homemade radio sprang to life. They heard the latest news: Allied victories in Europe, the Japanese retreat in the Pacific, and America's plan for a massive bombing campaign against Japan. The word of impending freedom spread quickly, delivered by Eric to other prisoners, including Major York. This news was a vital lifeline, fueling their hope. Tragically, the Japanese conducted a thorough search, sweeping the next morning. Eric rushed to the latrine and found his map missing. They had been exposed. The engineers and surrounding troops were immediately interrogated, and the radio components were discovered. Torby, Finley, Widdens, and Eric were summoned. Widdens was viciously beaten. Eric stepped forward bravely, claiming sole responsibility for building the radio. He was then subjected to a far more brutal beating. His friends could only watch and pray he would survive. After the ordeal, Eric was tended to by Finley and the others, alive but gravely injured. They knew the suffering was not yet over. Soon after, a Japanese secret police officer, Kenpitai, named Nagase arrived and took Eric into custody. Eric was interrogated in a separate room, with Nagase serving as the translator for the Japanese officer. They demanded to know the purpose of his railway map. Eric was accused of creating it to aid the enemy via the radio. Eric countered that the radio was only for listening. It lacked a microphone for transmission. The Japanese, however, refused to believe it was not a communication device. Day after day, Finley retrieved Eric, whose body bore fresh wounds. Eric was frequently confined to the bamboo cage, left to starve and thirst under the brutal sun, facing the same relentless questions. He was tortured beyond human endurance, his endurance aimed at stalling for time until rescue. Finally, Eric was taken to a dark room and subjected to waterboarding. Broken, he confessed to Nagase what he had heard. America was bombing Japan, their schools and hospitals were being destroyed, and their families were facing death. Nagase violently rejected the news, insisting it was a lie and that Japan would triumph. Eric was returned to the bamboo cage until British forces staged an air assault, forcing the Japanese surrender. The surviving British soldiers, including Eric, were rescued in early 1943. The film jumps forward to 1980. Eric, Finley, and other veterans regularly met at the Veteran Club support group. Eric, still fascinated by trains, meets a woman named Patricia, Patty, Wells on a railway journey. Their conversation sparked after Eric complained publicly about the train delays. They quickly connected, fell in love, and married. During their honeymoon, Eric began suffering terrifying nightmares, screaming and raving. His PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, was triggered, dreaming of Nagase, the bamboo cage, and the dark torture room. Eric became withdrawn, sleepless, and plagued by hallucinations. He resisted sharing his trauma, unwilling to relive the memories. Patty discovered chilling drawings in Eric's study depicting the atrocities he endured. One day, Eric's breakdown led him to pull a knife on rent collectors, mistaking them for enemies. Desperate for answers, Patty went to the Veteran Club and sought out Finley. As a former nurse and a devoted wife, she needed to understand. Though hesitant, Finley finally disclosed the full story. How Eric sacrificed himself and was tortured mercilessly, nearly dying, suffering broken bones and brutal abuse. Knowing the truth, Patty tried to soothe Eric, but the mere static from a radio triggered another emotional collapse, leading him to smash the new radio. Later, Finley met Patty again, giving her a newspaper clipping. It named Nagase the young Kempitai who was incredibly still alive. Nagase was now a guide in Thailand, working at the very site of the former POW camp. Finley argued that Eric deserved justice and revenge to finally heal his trauma. Patty, though deeply conflicted, agreed, believing it was the only way to save her husband. Finley showed the clipping to Eric, urging him to seek revenge. Eric refused, saying the war was over and he was no longer a soldier but a husband. Finley challenged him, pointing out Eric was indirectly torturing his wife with his pain, insisting they would always be soldiers. Eric remained resolute in his refusal. Eric and Patty took Finley to the station. Before boarding, Finley promised a message Eric would not ignore. As the train departed, Finley walked to a nearby bridge and hanged himself. The news of Finley's death reached them via phone. Patty was devastated, realizing Finley's final message was his own death. Eric reacted with anger, blaming Patty for interfering. Following Finley's funeral, Eric had a change of heart. He decided to travel to Thailand alone to find Nagase. In Thailand, Eric visited the museum documenting the war's history. He saw Nagase peacefully guiding tourists. Eric followed him to the torture site, waiting until the tourists left and Nagase locked up. Eric slipped inside, entering the room where he was interrogated and his hand was broken. Nagase entered, informing him the museum was closed. Eric finally stood face to face with the man who had shattered his life.
I'm surprised you don't recognize me.
Mr. Lomax, I did not expect you to be alive.
You will be killed shortly.
Nagase recognized him. Eric, no longer a terrified captive but a wounded, vengeful old man, demanded answers. Nagase calmly confessed to being haunted by guilt, claiming his guiding work was atonement, to ensure the dark history was never forgotten. Eric found this insufficient. Eric asked why Nagase, a war criminal, was still alive. Nagase defended himself, claiming that after the Japanese surrender, he had insisted he was merely a translator, not Kempitai. He was spared and tasked with assisting the War Graves Commission, identifying buried remains, which opened his eyes to Japan's true cruelty. Eric rejected the defense. Still viewing Nagase as a criminal, Eric forced Nagase into the bamboo cage, demanding he feel the pain. Eric was about to subject Nagase to waterboarding, but the memory of his own horrific experience in the dark room stopped him. He left Nagase and entered the dark room himself, where he could still hear his past screams. Realizing the dehumanizing nature of torture, he knew he couldn't commit the act, even for revenge. He returned to speak with Nagase. Nagase told Eric he was ready to die, offering his life so Eric could finally achieve vengeance. Nagase admitted his blinding pride in Japan and the promised victory. Eric took out the knife, then untied Nagase, and left. Crossing the death railway tracks, he threw the knife away, a symbolic act of making peace with his trauma. Eric returned to England, a transformed man, ready to live peacefully with Patty. Shortly after, Nagase sent Eric a letter expressing deep remorse and confessing his sins against the POWs. Nagase wrote that his immense guilt was finally lifted because he felt Eric had forgiven him. This letter was Eric's true turning point. The empathy shown by Nagase inspired Eric to seek complete release from his own bitterness. Eric decided to return to Thailand once more to see Nagase, this time bringing Patty. At the site of the former Ramusha camp, Nagase appeared and offered Eric a sincere, humble apology. Eric responded by handing Nagase a letter he had written. Receiving it, Nagase wept uncontrollably. The war had long been over. Both men had endured profound suffering, but Eric chose to forgive Nagase. The film concludes. Eric Lomax and Takashi Nagase became close friends until Nagase's death in 2011. Eric Lomax passed away in 2012 at the age of 93, with Patty by his side. The railway man teaches that revenge cannot heal. It only prolongs agony. Eric Lomax achieved true freedom only when he chose to forgive the man he hated most. Ultimately, forgiveness is a gift not for the other person, but a powerful medicine for the self. If you were Eric Lomax, would you have chosen revenge or forgiveness? Drop your answer and your reason in the comments below. If you were moved or inspired by the power of his forgiveness, please hit that like button on this video. And for more insightful film recaps and true stories that dive beneath the surface, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next video. See you soon.